Okay, let's see if we can't get this recording underway. Like we got some interesting things. Like we're lowjacking kids. We are apparently going, hence the title, Back to the Future. Because we're having the future of security via 10-year-old features, and it's like okay. Before we get into any of that shit, any of this like upper stuff look interesting to y'all? I mean, it makes me feel like an old fart, but I do have to give kudos to the fact that Link is now 25. There's something wrong with that. I feel very old. I'm like, oh, Link is an actual adult now. He's actually a quarter of a century old. I feel old.
I guess you can say Nintendo games, specifically the Zelda games, are no longer for kids.
If we're I'll call you back. I told them their Wi-Fi card was broken because it was being weird earlier.
Nice, man, nice.
Yeah. And hopefully the fact that I'm fucking lounging here in my drawers, and the shorts I'm wearing basically have holes in them, didn't show up on the camera. I just stood up and everything. If I gave anyone disturbing images, I apologize. It's like, this doesn't seem like Link's that old. I guess
it really doesn't.
You never actually said how old you are, but do I get the disturbing idea that Link is actually older than you, Leo?
Yep, he is.
I was 2 when Link came out, so.
Yeah, I remember when the Easter egg in the Zelda games was the attacking chickens. And it's like, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the fact that in the old Zelda games, there were these chickens that had absolutely no point at all other than to just be little sprites walking around on the screen. And you would eventually get so annoyed at them that you would attack them with your sword. You know, it was the obvious thing to do. The problem was, if you attacked them one too many times,
they ganged up on you.
Not only did they gang up on you, but it didn't matter if you left the area, if you went into a dungeon, anywhere you went until you died. It was Attack of the Assassin Chickens. Screens blazed like it. It's like, okay, chickens, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I'll never eat chicken again. I swear that game was programmed by vegans. Okay, getting into relevant crap. Yeah, I'm with you. The Twitter one's an interesting thing, but just in general tech and no way PC v Mac-ish, what do we think about the fact that we're lowjacking kids now?
For skipping school.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
That's like their official thing. If you actually go in and read this story, and I'll put a thing in it in the show notes. What it is if the kids are truant, like if they have more than 4 unexcused absences, rather than prosecute them, they basically say, you just have to have a GPS LoJack 24/7. We have to know where you are. You know, at 8 p.m. we'll change it over. We'll call in. We'll do stuff. I have really mixed feelings about it, and I'm really surprised that the article is honest about it, because they say this program will pay for itself because the schools lose Y dollars for every day you're not in class. So, basically it says, well, if you're under the age of 18, you're looked upon as a meat sack commodity, in which if you're in the correct location, the federal government will pay money for you being there. So, which is the whole reason we have truancy laws and everything else.
Which is an oxymoron in and of itself, because most public schools are paid for by the school district people.
Well, but
you pay taxes to send your children to school anyway.
You pay taxes by the people.
Exactly.
But the school gets credit by the attendance. It's like a jail. A jail gets money from the state based on how many people are actually in the jail. And it's the same thing with schools. They get Y dollars a day based on the number of bodies in the building. That's literally what it's based on. This is why they waste hours of valuable teaching time doing nothing but taking attendance. No, I have to get my $30 today, damn it. No, you're worth $30. Sit down and shut up. It's like, it varies. It's as little as $20, as much as $150, depending on the district, the state, county, and everything else. But
I wish that was the only way public schools were like prisons these days.
Oh no, we could spend hours on that. I saw where they were going when I got out. I thank the makers that I was born when I was, because if I'd been born 5 years later, I would not be a semi-productive member of society. I would be a menace to society, and I would have never graduated high school. I would have just escaped. Oh dear Lord. Anyways, okay, I'm depressed now. We start off pointing out that I'm old, and now we move into the fact that, and I picked these stories. What am I, a masochist?
Apparently.
Alright, what is it, what are we calling you, Mark, or Dark, or what?
It doesn't matter. Matt's fine, Dark's fine, whatever you guys want.
Okay, Matt, you read the Twitter one. Go ahead and start that one off. I don't care.
I find the whole article interesting because Twitter is about, supposedly being open and, all their APIs and crap are open. But, we don't think this application quite works well enough, so we're going to block the APIs for that application. Give me a break.
I kind of wonder about that. What exactly were they blocking it for?
They were blocking it for, like all things, and this has to do with something else that, that's fun. They were basically injecting their own ads, and Twitter wasn't getting a cut of them. So Twitter said, you're blocked. We have to get a cut of your ads. Your ads are putting things over 140 characters. No ads. You can't be putting your own ads in and call yourself in any way, shape, or form Twitter. So the problem one was the name Twitter was actually in the name of the app. That was problem one. Problem two was they were injecting their own ads, because that was how they were funding their app. They gave it away and they injected their own ads.
which in and of itself is funny, because you have other Twitter applications, be it iOS, WebOS, Android, whatever version, and they all use some type of Twitter, tweet, whatever you want to call it, that is specifically not the Twitter. You got TweetDroid, you got X, Y, and Z applications.
Well, I think this is part of Twitter trying to figure out how to monetize the fact that they are quickly becoming the global newswire, whether they want to be or not, and I think they want to be. But it's like they're trying to figure out how to monetize it, and the reality is everybody else figured out how to monetize that a long time ago. Oh, spam! Spam, 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 spam links, spam stuff. You must buy this to help the Google social rank index. Yada, 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 yada. But
the thing that drives the internet.
It's amazing how basically the commerce of choice when it comes to e-commerce is not actually selling stuff, it's spam! And the reality is, Twitter has no control of spam, because all that'll happen is Twitter can lock your app out, and then your app will go, well, okay, instead of actually doing it through my app's just going to ghost everything to a Twitter account, which is then going to tweet it. So the reality is, I don't think Twitter can ever actually put this genie back in the bottle without breaking Twitter. And if they break Twitter, then we won't use Twitter. It's like, you must go through our strict regulators to verify you are not an Egyptian dreaming about freedom. On that note, we feel sorry for all the Libyans right now. It's almost become this big neon sign. It's like the worst thing. I'm thinking about this. Would anybody care that Libya is doing what? I mean, people would obviously care, and I'm not like belittling this. But if they hadn't turned the internet off would the world fucking be looking at it with a microscope? I'm just saying,
No.
It's like, step one, turn the internet off. Okay, now that everybody's watching, it's like...
Why can all the people from outside Libya not get to the stuff that's in Libya? Oh, because the internet shut off.
Yeah, which is like, if I was in Libya and if I'm in a country and I'm a dissident and the big internet kill switch goes off, I'm suddenly on alert. Instantly, I switch from paranoia to rampant tactical alert. Instantly, I've switched gears, and the world as a whole now all of a sudden is trying to figure out any way they can to look in. People, geeks in the country are trying to figure out how to hack out. It's like you've set everybody on full alert when you throw that switch. Before you throw that switch, you're being strangely quiet on this particular topic, Leo.
Well, with Libya, that's because I have no idea what's going on. I haven't been following it.
Well, basically,
Libya
it's looking like Libya. Because of Egypt, Libya's government is doing what any government in threat does. They are overreacting, and people are dying. And step one to this whole process was turn the internet off so that the global media, who was becoming bored with Egypt, suddenly had somewhere else to zero their laser sights on.
Okay.
It basically, in a very cynical way, wraps that up in a nutshell. And I do mean
The government's funeral.
Well, the masses haven't quite gone over yet, but I think it's kind of it wouldn't surprise me. Well, I'm not going to go into this because of democracy. We're not sure they're actually ready for democracy, having exercised the general will of democracy. I'm like, I can't think of a people more ready for it. I really can't. They have to go draft a constitution and everything they can all agree with, but that's that's to me the key factor of being mature enough for that you accept responsibility for that power and actually exercise it at the appropriate times. Anyways, enough political theater.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Okay, who do we want to start with? Microsoft, HP, Apple, Google. Take your pick.
Given the name of the show, I would pick Microsoft.
You pick Microsoft.
Start off.
Okay, yeah, we haven't been talking about Microsoft for a long time. Well,
Microsoft hasn't been relevant for a long time.
well, yeah, I don't know. They're actually doing two things. One of these stories is really old, but it's only old in the respect that it's been coming for 6 months, and I'm sure it'll be coming for another 6 months, and because it's yet another IE9 story. And every time I come across one of these IE9 articles that tells me IE9 is a new standard for web browsers. IE9 is a new standard in privacy. IE9 is a new standard in security. Well, it is. And that for the first time in, like, forever, IE actually has security, privacy, and internet standards. What a crazy idea. I'm like, it's new for Microsoft. What was it? One of their big privacy things that this particular article was bursting is about the fact that IE will now be blocking these little 1x1 pixel things that are images, sometimes transparent, that are, things called bugs, and because they're web-based, they're web bugs, and they'll track you across sites because they happen to be loading from one site to another. And holy Wayback Machine, Peabody, didn't we solve this problem back before the year 2000? in every other thing except IE, and there was this great add-on for it for the Windows OS. I'm just is anybody really buying? Don't get me wrong, IE9 is a great browser. It does a lot of great things. But is anybody really buying that this is new technology, or is it Microsoft just decided to join the 21st century? And then there was a silence heard round the world.
Well, I have no idea what exactly they're doing. They don't open it up so that everybody can see exactly how it works to find out if there's still holes in there.
Well, it's like their claims are, it's, privacy, and that it's going to be blocking, tracking ads and web bugs.
All I can say is that it's nice that Grandma will have something to keep her safe before her grandkid comes and installs Firefox for her.
Well, but doesn't Grandma already know IE equals bad? It never ceases. I thought that was just like a geek thing, but I have clients that don't understand the concept of their 10-year-old computer can't use a USB 2.0 device because it doesn't have any powered USB ports. They don't get that concept, but they understand IE equals bad. I think the marketing has been penetrated. The fact that IE has been doing this in market share for the last 3 years plus. I think the bubble's popped. I think it's people are getting off of IE. So it's not like that's a big thing to do. Anything to say on that, Mark, or?
Basically all I gotta say about the whole thing is, it's funny when every other browser uses an open standardized test. I'm talking about ACID 2, 3, generic web standard test. Microsoft talks standards out of their butt because they're doing it on their own test platform. So they can talk about being, standards and having privacy standards.
Well, but
I'll believe it when
that's what they're
conform to everything else.
That's what they're That's the big bragging thing with IE9, and that we've actually decided that we're going to join the standard. The new standard for IE is that it's actually kind of standard. I'm like, okay, that's just wonderful. It only took you over a decade. Great. You're actually going to support CSS. You're actually going to support HTML5 tags. You're actually going to address security holes that everybody else patched back at the turn of the millennium. We're glad you've joined the new regime. We're glad that you're leading the way in being modern via the 19 whatevers. And moving on, because I don't want this to be Microsoft bash. I do find it funny that the number one complaint about Phone 7, this is a valid complaint, has been that it hasn't been updated. There's all these promised updates, all these things that were going to come out. And then Microsoft manages to get little things like that. And then Microsoft manages through the bullshit of, it has to go to a phone manufacturer who has to get cell phone provider to want to push it to the end user so that end user doesn't come back and buy new Phone 7 device. They managed to get a Phone 7 update pushed through all of that bullshit. And the end result was a bunch of Phone 7 phones. You're in, but you can't get out. They're not working right anymore. And I'm just like, maybe you should have held off on that update. Just maybe. Because
Sounds sounds like something that happened to the iPhone 3GS at one point.
It is.
With the iOS 4 update.
So no, and we might as well transition into the Apple. And I bash Apple all the time, and I don't like Apple. Anybody who's ever watched any of the content over here will vouch to that. But one thing I do have to very reluctantly in the I'm not actually saying the words that are coming out of my mouth kind of way, is that Apple is good about pushing updates regularly. And that you have to admit that. It's like they'll push an update that breaks something, and then if it's something they cared about, they will eventually fix it. The key qualifier there, if it was something they cared about. Now, if they were deliberately trying to break it, you're SOL. But, little things like jailbreaking or compatibility with other platforms, it's...
No comment. All I gotta say about this whole thing is, wasn't the whole thing about Microsoft only wanted a certain amount of phones, certain types of phones, and certain processors, and all this stuff. So they had a little more quality control than the what most people complain about with Android is the fragmentation. I use that term very loosely. And what do? Their first update is, it's got to go through all these. Well, you guys are the ones that can push the thing over the air if you want to. Just boom, here's your update. I mean, give me a break. I mean, even Google is pushing up updates over the air.
Well, but it's the filter thing it has to go through. It's one of those, I really do think Microsoft seriously underestimated the degree of bullshit between dealing with manufacturers. Do you have a little armed relative back there? Yeah.
Kind of.
But no, I think Microsoft seriously underestimated that because they're used to just everybody plays nice with them, and that's not the way the cell phone company works. The honest way that phones and telecom products work is you have person A whose best interests are fuck the end user. You have person, this is the manufacturer. You have person B, the provider, whose best interest is screw the customer. And then you have the poor customer who's being tugged around like a rag doll. And then the people trying to provide a service through this screw you, screw you, screw you. I actually care about you, but the four people in between us say fuck you. So I think Microsoft seriously underestimated that, and they're realizing, oh crap, this is harder than we thought. It's like,